Alright guys, I'm here with another video on Formidable Foes, and this time it's going to be on the Extreme 1 and Extreme 2 version of versus Jogo. Now the strategy behind it is exactly the same as the one on the lowest difficulty. Basically, what you want to do is you want to stun the enemy consecutively so that they never use their domain expansion. Now when I released my first video on the lowest difficulty of versus Jogo, a lot of people are asking me about kind of the stun rate, saying it takes a long time or it's just not possible to do it. It is possible, but it's just like ridiculously low RNG depending on what level you have on your character. I managed to dig up an article from the Japanese version of the game, and basically some people done some testing back in the days, and they think roughly every single time after you stun it, it decreased by about 30%. So what that basically means is that if your Toga skill 2 is only at level 5, then sorry, skill 3 is only at level 5, then on the fifth time you only have like 2.3% chance of stunning enemies. So obviously it's very, very low likelihood, but still doable. Whereas if you actually level up to level 6, then it becomes a 10% chance. So it's still RNG, but at least you probably see it a lot more often. So because of that, obviously those numbers no one know for sure. That's basically what they done from testing. But I'm gonna trust their numbers are kind of okay in the ballpark figure. So if you do actually want to attempt this stage, I'm gonna recommend at least level 6 now, or level 7 if you want to stun the enemy for 5 turns consecutively. And you definitely want to do that for the Extreme 1 and Extreme 2 version, because what you're actually gonna use is you are going to use this stacking ability on this SSR recollection, which is Pride, in order to actually deal out Gojo's ultimate attack using two stacked up buff from this recollection. So that's basically the way you're going to do it. And because this recollection have a cooldown of 5 turns, that's kind of why you need to be able to stun the enemy for 5 turns so that you don't take any damage. Well, the enemy doesn't use their domain expansion for the first 5 turns. You are then able to activate this recollection again on turn 6 and then ult. So that's basically the strategy behind it. Now, because you need Toge to be able to stun the enemy for 5 turns, he needs a ridiculously high amount of curse energy on him. And that's kind of why when I was showing my demo for the hard version, so the lowest difficulty, what I had done is I had used Kaito in my team. And that absolutely works, and it would still work for Extreme 1 and Extreme 2. The only problem with this is that yes, while Kaito gives loads of curse energy to the whole team, and that essentially ensures that your Toge always have enough curse energy to stun the enemy. But for Extreme 1, what you notice is that one of the 3-star condition is you would need both Maki and also Nobara in your team. So if you actually want to 3-star clear it in one go, then unfortunately you can't use Kaito. Now, of course, you can still beat the stage without fulfilling this 3-star condition and just come back later on when your team is stronger. That's absolutely fine. But that's basically what I'm trying to say, is that there are other alternative ways of beating this entire stage with without using Kaito. And that is also going to be important for Extreme 2. And whilst Extreme 2 doesn't have a criteria where force you to play certain characters, so you can definitely play Kaido, but the problem is Extreme 2 is just really, really strong boss. I personally tried and I have nowhere near enough damage output to actually kill off the boss. So that's kind of why I decided actually it's not worth it using Kaito, because while he can provide that curse energy, otherwise for vast majority of the time he's not gonna add anything additional. So that's kind of why I opted in using Nanami instead, because he can actually buff, which can stack up for 4 times, and that is going to increase your damage output on Gojo by quite a bit. So that's kind of why in today's strategy I'm going to show you this way of doing it. However, in order to do it this way, because you no longer have that curse energy buff from Kaito, you need to find a way for Toge to start off with plus 30 curse energy, and that is essentially going to be the tricky part. And the way you can find plus 30 curse energy is either via a dupe. You need to fulfill all 3 conditions. I'm going to say one is that you need to have a dupe on Toge. The second thing is Toge need to equip SS a recollection which is able to give curse energy. For example, this one. Now there are actually a few SR recollection which is able to give plus 10 curse energy. So just take a look through your backpack and you can probably find one. It may not be pictured like this because there are a few versions of it, but you should probably be able to find one. And then lastly, you also need to equip on someone else a recollection which is able to give plus 10 curse energy to the whole team. Now this one I'm showing you here is able to do it. There are once again a few SSR recollection which is able to do that, but unfortunately they all need to be dupe 1. So for example, this one give a plus 10 curse energy once dupe, and this one also give a plus 10 curse energy once you have duped it. And I think there's one other one as well. So you just once again need to take a look at the effects of those recollections once you actually dupe them. I will be creating a recollection tier list in the future, by the way. So if you want to figure out which ones you want to dupe, then check out that video, which I will post very soon, and probably tomorrow. And then how do you actually dupe it? You don't need to pull it twice. You basically just need to get lucky enough to pull it once, and then you exchange it by going into this exchange shop. And you should be able to have enough of these materials because that is the same materials you will be getting from Formidable Foes by clearing some of the earlier stages, for example here, right? So you should be able to actually get it. Like even if you don't take a look at Jogo's one, you will be able to get it from, for example, the special grade one here. So you can definitely get it, and you should have enough to be able to get a dupe. So you just need to dupe out a recollection so that it's able to give you plus 10 curse energy, and that's basically what you want to do here. And then in terms of the last slots, you can put whoever you want. Obviously if you're actually doing the extreme one, because it requires both Maki and Nobara, that's kind of why I have Nobara in the backup here. So if I was actually to 3-star clear this on extreme one, I will be swapping out this for Maki here. Out of the Maki and Nobara, assuming you only have the low rarity one, Maki is the one you want purely because Maki have a debuff skill which reduce enemies crit resistance. So basically she actually offer a bit more help in the battle rather than Nobara who only do straight damage, etc. But yeah, so I think this is all you need to know. Obviously, when you actually try the stages, it's going to take you awful a lot of time. And also, of course, let me show you the skill level. Someone told me on my channel that actually you can see the skill level this way. Very, very handy. So thank you very much. Basically, the main one you want is on your buffing skill, you want to be level 7. On Toge's stunning skill, I have it at level 7 as well because I will actually tell you now my damage output was not enough on Extreme 2 version. I needed to get actually a crit on my ultimate attack as well, just to be able to clear it. So on top of the fact I need to stun 5 turns in a row, I had to try loads of time for a crit to land on my ult as well. So that's kind of what I, well, I don't want it to take forever. I leveled up to level 7 for a much, much easier time. And then on my Gojo, I have both the ultimate attack at level 7 and also the buffing skill at level 7. Those are the main skills that you kind of need. The other skills, level them up a bit. You will be using them in this battle, but they're not kind of the main priority here. Okay, so this is the gameplay for versus Extreme 2. So you can see enemy have ridiculously high CP and you basically can't let them attack you at all. So I have already shown you the team before, so let's just go straight into the battle itself. Okay, so basically you have to stun the enemy for 5 turns so that you can use the recollection on Gojo twice. So that's kind of why on turn 1 you'll be seeing me using Gojo's recollection straight away. Now, because you do not have this continuous buff of curse energy, you are now no longer able to use buffing skill on Yaga and enemy every single turn. So what you're going to see instead is that for the first 2 turns, you are actually going to do normal attack in order to preserve your curse energy. Now, the thing with Gojo is that Gojo has a buff on himself which can last for 3 turns. Now that's including the turn when you have actually cast the skill. So if you actually walk backwards, you need to use his ultimate attack on turn 6. So that basically means on turn 4 and turn 5 you would want to be using buff so that you can increase the damage output on his ult. However, on turn 3 and before, any buff you use would have expired by then anyway. So that's kind of why on turn 2 and turn 3 you can do a bit of a damage. However, the attack you want to use is going to be his skill 2, and that's because his skill 2 is a physical attack. So it's not actually going to end up eating up the buff you have on your recollection. If you have chose to use skill 1 instead, then because that's a curse technique attack, you would have already used up your buff from your recollection. And if that's the case, then your ultimate wouldn't be able to benefit from it. So that's kind of why it's very important that you use skill 2 when you're doing those chip damages on turn 2 and turn 3. And also on turn 3, you can now start buffing up on your Yaga and also Nanami. And that's because, once again, their buffs last for 4 turns. So if you walk backwards, in order for you to get the maximum number of buffs on turn 6, when you use ult on Gojo, you have to start stacking up Nanami and Yaga's buff from turn 3. So that's kind of why I chose to use that buff starting from now, and then obviously Gojo does his last chip damage. And now it kind of goes into the mode where Gojo needs to buff up himself as well. So now just constantly buffing and stacking all the way until turn 5, where you will then see me doing that massive nuke. Okay, now you can see Toga used up all his curse energy, so there was only enough for 5 turns stunning. But luckily, I have my ult ready, and this is now where I use my recollection buff on my Nanami, but also the recollection buff on my Gojo again to buff up his ult. And I need a crit for this to work, so that's kind of why I was spending ages to try as well. And you can see, even with a crit, the enemies still have quite a bit of HP left. So that's kind of why I may even have to had like a crit on my second attack as well. I'm not too sure. But I think I did get a crit this time and was able to kill off Gojo. But yeah, so that's basically how I meant to be Extreme 2. It is definitely difficult, so you probably do have to level up your skills by quite a bit before attempting this.